Yeah, we've got a fantastic panel for you guys today. Let me run through who we've got. First up, Adrian Ježina, President of the Management Board at Telemach, Croatia. A round of applause all the way, let's go. Müge Akar, Head of Global Sales at ATV. Bernhard Schwab, SVP of Content Licensing at Paramount Global Content Distribution. Nicolas Eglau, Managing Director for EMEA at Moonbug Entertainment. Robert Šveb, General Director at HRT. Kenechi Belusevic, VP of Business Development and Distribution at Warner Bros. Discovery. And Greg Polad, Director General at Association of Commercial Television and Video On Demand Services in Europe.
Thank you.
There we go. Phew. Right, let's get going. We've got, I think, 7 of you guys, and we're going to dive right into linear TV, how it intersects with streaming. This part of the world especially, it's a really interesting sort of dichotomy and ecosystem that we've got going on. First off, I'm going to run right down the line, just get you to very briefly introduce who you are, what you do, and as we've got 7 of you, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds each, so please don't go long. Greg, let's start with yourself.
Sure. So my name is Grégoire Polad. I'm the Director General of the Association of Commercial Television and Video On Demand Services in Europe. So that's quite a mouthful, but essentially we've been the voice of the TV and VOD industry in Brussels since 1989.
Perfect. That was 29 seconds. Let's go next. Kenechi, sorry.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Kenechi Belusevic. I'm Head of Business Development and Distribution for Warner Brothers Discovery. I cover lots of markets from Southeastern Europe to the Baltics, CIS, Mediterranean, and Israel. Thanks for joining the panel today.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's get going.
Good morning. My name is Robert Šveb, and I'm currently Director General of Croatian Radiotelevision. We are approaching our 100 years anniversary, like old media outlet in Croatia, public service media, and we still do lots of linear and non-linear stuff.
Brilliant.
I'm Nicolas Eglau. I'm the part of the management team of Moonbug in London. I'm excited to be here and sponsor this session. My parents they had their honeymoon in Dubrovnik 55 years ago. So it's my first time here, so my mom got very emotional last night.
What a plug.
She heard about it.
So my name is Bernhard Schwab, and I'm handling the distribution with our wonderful team at Paramount Global. So our fans here, wonderful team, and we distribute our content to German-speaking and Central and Eastern Europe. And excited to be here. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Müge.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. This is Müge Akar. I'm working from a free TV channel in Turkey called ATV. We are the distribution arm of the channel, and we distribute Turkish drama series worldwide, including Middle East, Europe, Latin America, US, and Africa.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning. I'm Adrian, Ježina. I'm working for United Group as CEO of Telemach Croatia. United Group has a full circle of production, distributing, and operations of telecommunication in the region, and Telemach is strong alternative operator in Croatia, which has all different sets of pay TV services.
Excellent, thank you. That was great. The ecosystem we've got here in CEE is really interesting. We've got linear, we've got streaming, both these two mediums coming together. Nicolas, I want to turn to you first, if we can, because you're in the middle, and also we've got a clip. I'm sure you guys know what Moonbug do, but just briefly explain, if you can, some of the brands that you guys have got, in case people aren't aware. I think we've got a clip as well, so we can tee that up, and we can perhaps explain sort of how you've taken you've taken your shows and put them onto various different platforms, and how that strategy works. If we can play the clip first, perhaps, and we can see that for the Moonbug clip, and then we can dive into it with Nicolas. have a round of applause. Why not? Yeah. It's really interesting set of brands you've got there. I mean, the first question we've got is sort of exploring how linear is, how you're using linear, I guess. Because you guys are very much, you were digital first, streaming. We see you on YouTube. You've got, I think it was 9 billion views you were saying backstage. But you were also launching linear channels. So tell us about the strategy for you guys.
So basically, we are a pretty young company. We created 6 years ago in London and Los Angeles, and basically turned around the model. Started from YouTube, basically acquired the biggest kids IPs on YouTube, young preschool age, like those IPs which we really believe can deliver values like compassion, empathy, like making kind of kids prepare for their future. And then, in the meantime, we have 9 billion views on YouTube every month, so we're the by far largest player in the world on YouTube. But then we started basically, instead of going from the digital model, we started basically reversing it, starting from YouTube, then going to Netflix, going to Amazon, Hulu, and then to local players, streamers. And a few years ago, we started to launch linear channels around the world, and they are top performing everywhere because people know these brands. They maybe not know Moonbug because we're not a consumer brand, but they really know Cocomelon and Blippi and Little Angel, which are top 3 brands in the world. And so we basically reversed the model. A lot of the traditional start obviously with theatrical, then pay, free, streaming, and then in the end YouTube. And we started on YouTube and went the other way around. And basically brought these audiences to streamers and to linear audiences because people were aware of these brands, because YouTube is the biggest platform in the world, is free, and so people know Cocomelon. And then, but they still prefer to watch it on their local streamer or on a linear channel in their market. So Central Eastern Europe for us is the next market where we want to launch our channels, so that's why we're here. We are talking to some of the platforms, so for us, it's just a very important region because pay TV is still so strong here.
Yeah. And what is it about linear specifically that you think appeals to your demographic? Because obviously, I mean, your shows are aimed at 2 to 5s, I guess, generally.
Yeah.
But obviously, the parents are making the decisions on that. So does that come into your thinking in some way?
We see that especially the very young children, like 2 to 5, we love co-viewing with their parents. We know that more than 60% of our viewing is co-viewing with parents, and especially on big screens. So for us, the ideal experience for us is this is a joint experience, parents and kids. And I think what we do with our channel, we follow basically the routine of a day of family. We know what they do in the morning. We know, obviously, during the day, we follow their routine, give them, when they come back from school, playtime. When they go to bed, they have lullabies, brush your teeth. We basically help a family. I think when the kids grow older a little bit, like 7 or 8, they think they start making their own decisions. So we really try to, follow the routine of a family. So I think especially for young children, a linear channel still has a lot of relevance because it can support families on their sometimes tough days, especially when you have more children.
Yeah, it's been a lifesaver to me previously. Robert, let's talk to you about HRT, because you sort of see the whole spectrum as well. What are you seeing on the linear front? So let's start with that. And how is viewing changing for you guys at HRT?
Yeah, I mean, media landscape is changing rapidly, as we all know. But linear is still strong in Croatia, as well as rest of the Eastern Europe, apart from the Western countries. So which gives us opportunity to, build on some hit shows still from time to time. Sports is definitely running the show, hit the record-breaking ratings, and then some entertainment, but also factual works in linear. We run 5 channels in free-to-air. Also, kind of lucky that the cable penetration in Croatia kind of, plateaued at like close to 50%. So we still have lots of households, covered by free-to-air only. So that helps. But definitely the behavior of our audience is changing, and we built on free VOD and other platforms, So we just had 10th anniversary of our OTT platform. So we gained some experience and we learned about audience. So it's going to be more ways to diversify from linear to and combine this. This year we are going to do first digital only, or digital first and digital only show for teenagers, which is going to be Scam production, so we'll see how this will go, and maybe this is going to be a start of some more serious transition. But linear is still performing well, although I must say the audience is growing old.
I was going to say to you, the demographic.
Fortunately, average age of our viewers is 64.
Okay.
So that's going to be changed.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's go down the other end. Adrian, at Telemach Croatia, how are you finding the transition at the moment? How strong is linear for you guys?
Well, we are also seeing the trends. You know, there are always events like sports or some live events that, you know, linear is the key. But if you look at the viewing habits, actually the linear channels are also very viewed, but they are very often and in bigger portion now viewed in time shift mode. So you have, let's say, still watching linear, but kind of in when you want, at what time and what you want. And what we are also seeing, of course, is streaming, which is coming up. And you know, here we can divide maybe technology and the content side, because on technology side, as a broadband is increasing capacity, speeds, and latency, and everything else, you know, streaming will be probably ruling technology over time. The question is, you know, really about the content, which kind of content do you watch? And from that perspective, you know, as the history teaches us, first you had, I don't know, pay TV operator, and then you had broadband customer, and it bundled over time. And, you know, we see that currently people are using streaming services on top, usually, and some parts of people don't use TV at all, so as a younger one. So I think at the end, what we believe and what we are trying to do through our own platform is bring all that together. A lot of libraries, a lot of kind of so-called streaming platforms with linear in the same experience, and that actually you have for all ages something that they can watch, and it's, will it be called streaming, will it be called linear? It's, they want to watch content, which kind of content and in which segment they want, and that's a convergent path, which of course this part of Europe is a little bit behind in the habits, but sometimes this progresses, and once you cross the tipping point, it changes overnight, and we are not there yet, but we are seeing the trends going in the direction.
We're going in that direction, yeah. And Kenechi, I want to talk to you about Warner Bros. Discovery in this part of the world, because I mean, you've got some sort of fairly hefty assets that you can sort of deploy. How are you viewing, especially in this part of the world, the sort of the balance, linear versus streaming, and perhaps let's look forward as well. How do you sort of see it changing over the next sort of 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the things I've had is you have the global narrative that linear is going down, and then you come into these territories and you have to adapt what is the market dynamics. I will reiterate some of the things that they've said, that we're still seeing very strong linear presence across these countries. The way that linear is delivered, they are strongly geographically covered. And so when you look at that, you see that there is an advantage in where our business is, because we have the networks, we've got a lot of channels, we've got different partnerships, and our content as well literally covers every demographic. We've got from kids content to sports to factuals to movies. So that's really rich for us behind the scenes, because we are able to tap into that data and see what is working on linear, how it's being consumed. So in this region, it is still quite strong. You still hear channels being launched. However, we are also seeing the evolution. That's what I would like to call it. I wouldn't want to call it the transition. The evolution of the media landscape, okay? like Richard said, you've got an older demography that is used to watching things and probably will be overwhelmed by the massive choices that the streamers are given, okay? Linear still benefits a lot from the scheduled programming that they've been very used to doing. And then that impacts the streaming, because what you're seeing in the streaming is that they are trying to get to the message the way that that scheduled programming can translate into streaming. So we've got these two worlds where we see the data on the linear, we're still quite strong there. And then we are exploring with the streaming all the content. We've recently launched Max, which is where you can get all our assets. So I really think that there are different stakeholders, but everybody is playing around the same game. So the first thing is, hey, let's take market share from the existing linear. And then you've got the existing linear, to his point, an older demographic. So you've got a demographic that ain't never going to be in linear. The younger ones, how do you appeal to them? And then for them, it's going to be something new and something different, but they still have to go somewhere and get their internet. So I feel that we're heading towards, or we're already there with aggregation, hybrid, where viewers are going to be offered digital and linear in the same space. And then the technology is really going to be the key thing of how they access it. So I really feel that we're doing very well in harnessing both sides. But the key thing for us is still the strong storytelling, the best stories, because to his point, it's content that will keep people there, and how they access it is going to be very critical.
Good stuff. And Bernhard, for you guys over at Paramount, we're hearing sort of the narrative here is linear is still strong here, but it's, we can sort of foresee what's going to happen perhaps to some extent. How are you guys approaching that from a distribution point of view? Is it good that there's multiple windows that you can sell into? How do you view it from Paramount's point of view?
I think in the center of everything for the audience is the content about it. That's number one. And we see it, we have our linear channels. We have the free-to-air and basic channels. In the US, we have CBS, the #1 network for the last 16 years. We have Nickelodeon, a huge brand internationally. And thereby, linear helps to establish franchises, establish the brands for the audience. So that's going to also help then, if you think about Paw Patrol or SpongeBob, in terms of consumer products going now. That's growing the business overall and the audience as well for our linear partners. Some of them here on the panel, and so we work with all of them on the linear side, but we will also see it on the digital side. And for that, again, going back to the content, we feel that franchises are key. The viewer has so much choice. We have the linear choice, but we also have the on-demand choice. So the brands behind it are key. So for the kids looking at the Paw Patrols of this world, NCIS now going to its 1000th episode in the NCIS world, or the movies, think about Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible movies, you see them all over the place. And that's where you go into the windowing, as you mentioned. You're going to see it on pay TV, you're going to see it on demand, you're going to see it on linear. And that's where, Tom Cruise is always entertaining for us. So.
Yes, that is true. Müge, similar sort of question to you guys at ATV. How are you sort of approaching it? And looking forward as well, again, let's try and move the conversation, sort of do a bit of sort of forward looking as well. How do you see it changing? How are you approaching sales into this region?
CEE is, yes, mostly linear-oriented market, but we also see a shift to digital transition, that's for sure. We also have local streamers here where the channels have their digital services. Since we are a TV channel in Turkey, we produce long-running TV series. That's our main product for distribution. And since the CEE region is also mostly linear, they're also asking for long-running content. So I think in that sense, we are quite, lucky because we can provide them long-running content. But when it also comes to the digital consumption, we also have to find some kind of content differentiation there, because They're all asking for, you know, a little bit different content type, like maybe historical series with higher budgets, and maybe shorter series, or, you know, different type of content. So we have a huge library, so we can also, you know, find different type of content for that demand as well. And yeah, looking just, you know, as a whole, and I think CEE is still growing and it still has a lot of room to grow. Probably, you know, it will reach the digital consumption a higher level in the future, and so we are trying to be prepared for that.
Yeah, okay. And Greg, let's turn to you. Great to have you here. Your organisation, ACT, sort of goes out to bat essentially for broadcasters across Europe, if that's
we try.
To say. We've just heard from these 6 guys. You know, it's an interesting sort of situation we've got over here in CEE, especially. The evolution is perhaps a little bit less than what we've seen in Western Europe in terms of streaming uptake. What does that mean from the regulatory side of things? What lessons can we be learning from what's happened in Western Europe compared to, you know, what perhaps some of the regulation we could be looking at to implement over here?
Sure. Well, I mean, yes, I just have to agree. I mean, there is a remarkable permanence, right, to linear in this region, although every market is different, and most of the people around the table are members of ACT, so I won't be saying one is better and doing a better strategy than the other. And but yeah, obviously, when you have a region where, on average, right, in Europe, you're looking at 80% of revenues basically for linear and 20% for streamers. Here in this region, it's 92%. So it gives you an idea a little bit of how strong it is. The revenues are higher for pay TV. The viewing time is higher. I mean, you have 3 hours and a half in average in Europe. It's up to 5 hours and a half in Romania. I don't know how people manage, by the way, but so there's extraordinary growth. And again, all of these markets are different. In terms of regulation, the way we look at it is basically how can we continue to make sure these players, and they're all doing all of these things, right? We don't have an opposition between streaming and linear. You can get linear service on streaming as well. So it's a bit of a defunct definition and approach. And I like what Kenechi was saying about evolution. I was last week in London and listening to Ivan Shapiro, who's the media cartographer. Some of you may follow him. And he was pleading for evolution towards a user-centric, very user-centric focus about how you treat your customer, whether he's switching from linear or going over to his streaming service, so that basically not everybody ended up looking 30 times for something and ended up looking at Friends. But the idea there, in terms of regulation, for us at least, going back, is to how can we ensure there's reinvestment in content? How can we ensure that linear services, for example, who thrive on sports, as we've heard, can continue to invest in sports as the way they do, or in original productions? And for us, I mean, obviously we're focused on the EU side of things, where 80% of legislation that comes out of Brussels comes to hit you somewhere in the future. So we're a little bit the voice of the future, coming to tell you what's going to happen soon. And for us, I mean, as we engage, I mean, hopefully a lot of you have voted for the European elections, so we engage in this whole new mandate. Well, there's going to be, obviously, looking to how we can look at the new measures coming out of Europe. So there's stuff with regard to, okay, how do we increase revenues? There's a lot of stuff that everybody's waiting for on piracy. I think you all want to make sure that your services and what you license, it's protected, and that you can continue deriving revenue from those assets. So there's a lot happening there. Everything to do with the challenges of dealing with VSPs, right, which are the video sharing platforms, which are, you know, everybody's competing here, but we have a much bigger competing issue with, you know, all of these big platforms, although we sell, some of you will sell to them, etc. But there's a necessity to basically look at the asymmetric relationship that we have there. We have a lot more rules than they do, and it's about how to level the playing field. And I think we've been doing that a lot in Brussels recently. And then, and this will please my friend from the Film Fund who's here. We have also looking at, you know, how do we actually balance out the contributions that the sector is asked to do in this specific environment, because let's not kid ourselves, it's a difficult environment for everybody, and we need to find a way of actually balancing these contributions to make sure that basically they lead to growth, right? And that we're feeding into a system that delivers on growth, media pluralism, cultural diversity, of course, but we need to look to new avenues of how that's going to work. Because right now, the way this is pointing to, regulatory-wise, is that there's more and more pressure from the below and from the top on broadcasters, on streamers, and that essentially we're looking at a picture where we're not sure if that reinvestment cycle of 50% is going to continue. So for linear TV in the region, it's not me to say, has it leapfrogged? Does it have a backlog compared to what happened in the West? But what's clear is that there's going to be a need, certainly, to reassess how do we regulate these players so they can continue doing the good things they're doing. That's it for me.
No, yeah, fascinating stuff. And I mean, moving on from that, I guess, I mean, Kenechi, let's talk to you about WBD and what you guys are doing. I mean, I think we'll just run down the line and find out how you're sort of dealing with linear with a view to streaming is coming. We can see the uptake's increasing. That's probably where the future lies, even though at the moment linear is very strong. As Greg said there, you know, those are some broad figures across this part of the world, but the revenues are still, you know, they're out. If you're on linear, you're making probably more money than you're on streaming, but the viewership is going in the other direction. How do you guys, and I'll pose this to each of you if you want to prepare your answers. But sorry, Kenechi, you're first. I'll put you on the spot. But I'll keep talking for a little bit so you can think about your
come up with better answers, the rest of you.
But for you guys, yeah, I mean, how do you sort of balance those two divergent things where you've got, you know, essentially the trend to streaming is going in one direction, but the revenues on the linear side are still fairly strong. Yeah. Do you look is linear a sort of almost a marketing tool now, essentially, to try and get people to jump onto streaming services? How does it work out for you guys?
Well, quite interesting. It's really linear for us is still very strong. Let's start with advertising, because also in certain markets we have free-to-air. In the US, we've got big networks. And also across CEE, we do advertising on our pay TV networks as well. And that is where the first point of data is for us, what people are watching. So in terms of that, I don't want to call it a cash cow, because it's still really delivering, both in cash and also in viewership data that informs what we do on our streaming. We also know that, yes, the growth trajectory seems to be, because the thing about streaming is that it offers the players an opportunity, because there is a flexibility for a global reach with the same content. So we're looking at that opportunity, but making sure that there is a balance in this audience that is still gold for us, that are consistent on streaming, on linear, and still trying to navigate into the streaming and finding what it is that they want to watch and what we want to deliver. But the key point for us is the content.
Yeah.
What is the stories we're telling? Is it still quality on all levels? Are we bringing what the consumer wants? Because consumers have to be in the first place, okay? And then we center every other thing around that. So linear is still a strong point in terms of marketing, in terms of money, in terms of penetration, in terms of communal viewing, which people actually underestimate. Streaming is great, leading to the binging. I actually read something the other day that it's for quite limited about streaming not still having achieved that communal viewing. So there is still, if you look at it, there is still a lot of things that streaming is picking from linear and working to see how to replicate in its own way, you get, while also having the need to understand that there is an audience out there that have never been in streaming, the younger one, in linear. And so that's the opportunity there. So we don't really see it as a competition. It's about continue to do what we're doing, albeit understanding that there is a growth trajectory with streaming and we've got to invest there. But we also have to keep a balance of the audience that have been so loyal and faithful to us in our partnerships. And then not trying to make it look like there's more quality in streaming than on linear. It's a lot of things to balance, but I think I fancy where we are right now because we are across all the touch points. And we're embracing it and doing our homework behind the scenes to make sure that our consumers still find us the place that they want to get all their content.
Robert, same sort of question. I mean, we've talked about being in all the places, so you can draw people in. How does HRT compete against? You've got other regional players, you've got local, national players, you've got WBDs and Paramounts of this world putting their own streamers into this ecosystem. How do you guys balance all of those competing demands with what you're trying to do? And you've got your live events and your sports, which still drive audience, but sort of looking further ahead, how do you balance the whole the ecosystem?
Yeah, no question that the game is getting more and more complex. But from my old-fashioned media shoes, I won't make any predictions, because 11 years ago, here in this same place, same conference, some experts like us today were saying that the linear TV is going to die. So it didn't happen, and I don't think it will happen anytime soon, but the game is changing for sure. So definitely live sports, news, live entertainment will remain predominantly linear approach. It will generate audience, and that's for sure. For the rest of the content, it's moving towards VOD. Now we are acquiring rights for both free TV and free VOD. So now we can learn. We are lucky now we have data. Otherwise, previously, they would say like, this is going to get good ratings. Now we can make decisions based on data. And there are some frightening learnings that we got from our 10 years experience doing with comparing linear and non-linear worlds with the data. So for example, when we buy something, and we put it on a linear and on our free VOD, you see that the audience is different. Same content, different behaviors, different consumption, and happiness level of the audience is different. So also then we started to talk to streamers, and then we also acquired some content which was produced and tailor-made for the streamers. Attracted good ratings on platforms. Then you put it on linear, audience is not happy. So there are lots of things that we have to learn before we can say, okay, this is going to be that way or the other way. So definitely new generations have different behaviors than old generations, but the content will remain to be king in all cases. The only way how to reach the audience, it will be very different as we are walking towards all internet future, and to find the audience will require a lot of very sophisticated tools to do it.
And then you mentioned data there, Nicolas. I'm going to turn to you because I know you guys use data quite a lot to sort of to inform your decision making, where you put shows, how you distribute them, how you make sure they get hold of the people they need to get hold of, which is interesting. So I'm presuming you've done that over here. I mean, it's an interesting one with you guys. You're going after the parents who are making the decisions on what their kids are watching. Those parents probably, some of them will have grown up with grown up with streaming. Are you sort of seeing how is the data informing your decision making in this part of the world? I'm guessing the fact that you're launching linear channels says something.
I mean, first of all, we are in a very different position than anyone else on this panel here, because we don't have to defend linear, because we are not coming from linear. So we are coming from streaming. So basically, we've been created the biggest digital first company in the world. Like we mentioned that before, we are reaching in every market here in the region, we are the #1 in terms of reaching families and kids. And so for us, it's not linear versus streaming, because we see linear as an opportunity for us to grow in this region and to bring all our audience to platforms like yours in this market. And a lot of our competitors, they are in the other situation. So they launch their own apps, and they make some kind of decisions between linear. We don't do this because we put all our best shows on the linear channel here. We made that commitment to all our partners. So we see it as a joint experience of linear and VOD. If people want to watch like Lean Back, linear is fine. If they want to stream, then they just watch Cocomelon for 1 hour and then Blippi. So we really see this as, we don't have to defend anything. We don't have any legacy on linear. We see it as a new business for us, as a business that started somewhere else.
Yep.
Yes, and data. We have obviously a lot of data as a company that's once started on YouTube, and we know exactly, how many people when watching us, and then we can obviously create products for platforms like yours based on that, whether linear or non-linear. And so for us, the future is much more positive here, and because we create something instead of trying to defend something.
Yeah.
And that's the message I want to give here.
Can I briefly talk to you about sort of revenues? We haven't talked about money. We've only got 10 minutes left. So, is there does it make more sense for you guys to launch a linear channel in terms of revenue than it would be to just put content onto YouTube or onto Netflix or do a licensing deal with a local linear network?
We don't make decisions based on revenue. I think we are still homes that never watch YouTube and they rather watch the linear channels on their paid operator. So we don't want to exclude any household from watching our content. So when people want to watch us on Netflix, they watch us on Netflix. If they want to watch us on the Croatian Telecom, they watch us there. So I think we normally approach everyone in a non-exclusive way, so people won't get any kind of holdbacks or exclusivity. People can just watch us everywhere and in the way they want, and they normally do it. So.
Thank you. Bernhard, let's talk to you. Yeah, the way that you guys were sort of approaching it over the next couple of years, we're seeing this real evolution, but at the same time you're trying to sell into different windows, I'm guessing. How is it going to work out for Paramount? You've got Sky Showtime in this region as well. What's the sort of the way that you're approaching it in terms of windowing and distribution channels as well?
So Sky Showtime obviously is a very big and important streamer for us in the region, but we also do a lot of business with the linear partners or other streamers in the area. And thereby it's really that combination. If you see, for example, in the US again, every week we see the charts of the best performing shows on streaming, and NCIS always pops up. NCIS now in season 21 still continues to drive on CBS, on linear, but you also have it on streaming, performing really well. And I think that's also the chance. It's a growing business between linear and the streamers, and we're going to have shows that are very linear that also reach a broad audience on the streamers. So that's a show that travels across, and I think linear is very key in terms of its curation. Establishing new franchises, linear is always key for that experience. So we'll see more of this in the future.
And are you finding, local content, we've seen the surge of sort of local content, especially in this part, well, in all sorts of parts of the world. There's been a real push for that. Is that affecting what you guys are doing, and that's perhaps some of the ways that you're getting involved in programming, the types of shows that you're pushing in this part of the world or in parts of the world where they're looking for a bit of more sort of local programming? Is that influencing what you're doing?
We have local programming on the streaming side, but we also distribute local shows, though predominantly, or the biggest brands we continue to see coming out are global brands. So that, continues. And thereby also the windowing, I think that's something that we'll see will continue to increase. We have it on the feature film side. We'll have it more on the series side as well, where it's going to be broader, multiple windows, reaching the audience where it is, with our partners again.
Yeah. Müge, let's turn to yourself for ATV and selling shows into this part of the world. I'm sure we've got lots of buyers and distributors in the audience. How are you sort of approaching it? In terms of, let's talk about windowing especially. Are you finding buyers are increasingly looking to sort of get that whole package? Or is there, are you finding, especially in this part of Europe, people are happy to still just take linear rights with a little bit of, VOD perhaps on the side? How is that sort of evolution going?
Well, when we started first working with this region around 10, 15 years ago, it was mostly free TV deals. And since the digital transition started and the local free TV started to have, VOD services. Then, of course, they started to ask for free TV plus VOD rights also. So that's kind of, I think, a hybrid, way of working. And, well, of course, we also have just VOD deals in the region also, but mostly it's free TV and VOD deals together. And I think the license periods also got longer in the region because, the channels, they want to be able to monetize more for the same content, to be able to use the runs more. And yeah, that's generally the model that we are working on right now. But when you look at other parts of the world, of course, you have the fast rides, AWOD rides, it's becoming more complicated.
Yeah, we've got fast, and we've barely touched on fast, so we've only got 4 minutes left. Adrian, let's talk to you. Yeah, in terms of sort of the way that you're seeing the market evolving for Croatia Telecom, how do you foresee it shifting, and how are you going to use linear to perhaps be able to leverage linear strength at the moment to ensure a stronger streaming future?
Well, at the end, it was mentioned here, there is a saying which was a long time ago that content is a king. So at the end, it comes to the point that somebody really wants to watch something. Is it live sport or a series or a movie or for kids, whatever. So you have to give them the right content and through the media which the customer will choose. But it's also about creating a value chain, and here we didn't touch that today, in a sense, who will get the value out of all this, because there are so many, streaming services, so many linear channels, and in that circle, our group is kind of positioned very well with the broadcasters and pay TV channels and producing the channels, and then a EON platform, which is also our own, and then at the end we come as the operator. And here, the value chain is, do I give just a broadband, or I can add on and they pay from some other streamer or watch linear somewhere, or we can give them the whole bundle. And in that bundle, actually we try to provide them, everything inside, like 200 plus linear channels, and our library today has on the highest tier package. It's subscription, so it's free if you pay for linear. It's, I think, 25,000 assets. And we are partnering with there is also this partnership with a lot of streaming services, which especially the local level ones, Vojo in Slovenia, or Sinister, or HBO, or Bigbox. So at the end, I think, as I mentioned before, you saw in America drop from linear to streaming, but you also saw that there was a pump up of people making subscription to streaming services at some point, 6, 7, 8, and now it's dropping down. So it comes to the point what I really want to watch, and how much I can afford it. And if we come from a point that we give them everything in one customer experience and value for money, that we make a value for customer and for the shareholder, because then I think that's where something will move, and then customer will have everything and he will choose, and the battle is where this value will go, and it doesn't have to go only to the one partner, because then it's not a partnership. So I think long term, how you will distribute the value of the content owners in the game. This will, because everybody has it eventually to make money out of it, and and now there is a lot of buzz here. Yeah?
Okay, fascinating. Right, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Greg, I wanted to get you quickly on where we see the industry going, and I think we're going to run down the line if we can as well. But despite what Robert said, I'm going to try and get him to give a prediction and crystal ball gaze a little bit. But Greg, let's start with yourself. We've seen what's happened in Western Europe, we've seen what's happened in the States, but every country is very different, and the ways that people consume content are completely different as well, and the types of content they're watching. And I think perhaps that has got lost over the last couple of years. There was a real focused on streaming. We've seen what's happened on that front in terms of sort of the US majors especially. For you guys, what is the opportunity here? We've got linear still being fairly strong in this region, but there's a trend towards streaming. For ACT, how can you use this knowledge, and you can see what's happened previously, how can you use that in terms of sort of the regulatory side of things? What needs to change, or what needs to stay the same for the future to make it a strong ecosystem?
Well, I don't know if the mic still works, but I'll speak louder. So for us, the value definitely of television is its ability to continue to connect audience, right? And there's a strong narrative that plays with that. I mean, it's basically building identities, creating stories, an attachment that you can't really get when you're watching a YouTube video per se. That comes with linear, but as well as with other forms of broadcasting. You were saying earlier on content is king. It definitely is. That's immutable. But also data is the castle, right? And so I think there's a big challenge ahead, and it's been there for many years already, which is who controls the data, who controls the audience data, who's able to understand where that is going. Obviously, everybody wants a piece of it. I personally have real questions about, where are we going with AI? Is there going to be, we haven't seen yet what Sora is going to do and others to content creation, and what any deals would mean in terms of that and the positioning of the industry. There's a real issue if we're talking about linear about advertising. I mean, we still have two players that control 60% of the pie. And they're not necessarily the players that are actually investing in content and, actually putting money into this whole ecosystem that we have, which is beautiful and has been manufacturing wonderful TV shows and movies and documentaries and the rest. So, and your question is huge, but essentially I think, we need to have a real think about what do we actually want to do and who do we want to contribute and how do we actually look at these different entities, whether it's the broadcasters or the streamers who clearly are investing, clearly are paying taxes, clearly are getting people employed, and how we can actually help them to continue doing that versus others who aren't necessarily. And how can we balance that out? That's our main plea here.
Excellent. Kenechi, I'm going to give you, I'm flashing, well, I'm not even flashing red anymore, we've gone so far over. I'll give you 20 seconds. Are we going to see, this time in 10 years, NEM, what are we in, 2024? 2034, God, that's scary. NEM 2034, are we going to see linear as strong as it is now, less, what's your prediction?
I think we're going to see a very strong value proposition for the consumer.
Excellent. Okay,
coming together from both linear and streaming.
Good stuff. Robert, your crystal ball gazing moment?
On a short run, I'm not worried about the ratings because next week Euro is starting, so we are the host broadcaster, and Croatians are sure that we are going to win the trophy this time.
Nicolas, I just wanted to, if we can, before you answer yours, I know we've got a nice short video just to wrap things up on the Moonbug front. If we can play that video, and then I can get you to give your prediction, please, if that's all right. If we can play the last Moonbug video, please. Lovely stuff. So, yeah, your moment to shine. 20 seconds on...
I'll keep it short. I think there are going to be definitely less pay channels or linear channels in 10 years. I think those are going to survive that are bring value to the viewers, and they bring in a curated way, whether it's news, sports, or good kid channels where all the commitment goes in, or very good documentary channels. Mm-hmm. But they're definitely going to be less streamers. They're going to be less linear in 10 years. So people make selective choices, and those who bring the best combination of like commitment or content to the viewers, they will survive.
Excellent, thank you, Bernhard.
I think we're going to see evolved linear players that also offer a strong on-demand component, but the linear brand will transcend and will also work on on-demand space.
Excellent, thank you. Müge, what do you think?
Well, I think, the hybrid approach will be the key for the survival of the linear. And I think linear will still stay.
Still have linear, yeah. And Adrian, you've got the last word.
So I'm sure in 10 years that we'll be all 10 years older. And that about this, technology is evolving, AI, what mentioned and all this. So I think the landscape will look different. How much, where, it's hard to envision this time, but but customers will change their experience, habits, viewing, and we need to adapt, and these changes will be faster than in history. So let us see where it will come. Yeah?
We'll have to reconvene in 2034. Yeah. We are well and truly out of time. Please put your hands together for my fantastic panelists. Thank you. Thank you.